everybody, I'm Tom Vassell. Welcome to Week in Review, where we take a look at all the stuff we did last week, give you short summaries of it, and then if you want to see more, we have links in the description of this video. So let's get started. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Z Garcia. Here's what I reviewed last week. So I reviewed Arkeis, which I gave a 7 out of 10 to. This is a big, sprawling box. It's a dungeon crawl game. But it's actually a great example of a bigger game, of a smaller game in a bigger box. The usual, flip side of that is a game that feels bigger than the box would entail. This one's actually the opposite of that. And that's not a bad thing. I enjoy the game. It's got a wonderful, sense of setting. It's got some really cool miniatures, but the game made some choices that don't really make a whole lot of sense to me. It's sort of a legacy-ish game because you have to sticker it and write over things, but it's not robust enough to really be a legacy game. So it's really more of a campaign game, but a campaign game that you have to destroy as you play. It's incredibly simple. It's one of probably the simplest, if not one of the simplest dungeon crawl games that I've ever played. But it's only a few stories. There could have been a lot more there. So it's a strange one. I like it, but it's hard to recommend unless you love the look and the setting of the game, or if you don't mind that there's not that much content in there, So that's Arkeis. I reviewed Battle of Gods, which I gave a 7.5 to. This one is a Yahtzee-style combat game. You're going to be rolling dice, making sets, and trying to, get to a certain number of victory points. You get to 10, you win. There's a couple of mechanisms in here that I really enjoyed. I thought it was very clever. This idea of, as you attack your opponent, you deplete their life, and when it goes over certain spots in their life tracker, you take a token sit in there. That's one of the points you get. You also can just make points from other things. You can collect them on the board. So there's... it's a fairly simple, straightforward game. It really is about that dice chucking, and these miniatures that come in the game are just insanely overproduced, way over the top. Do not need to be this nice, but they are very nice. And I like the game. I think it's a good one. If you enjoy things like King of Tokyo, if you enjoy Dice Throne, this is another one I think you're going to have a good time with. The game doesn't have as much of a sense of humor and a silliness as those games, but it's a robust package that's easy to understand. I reviewed Fliptown, which I gave an 8.5 to. Fliptown is a roll and write style game, or, I guess a flip and write style game, in which you are going to be marking on your board various locations you are visiting. This one is the epitome of a big game in a small box. There's so much to do, so many places you can unlock, abilities you can gain to help you in other locations, and it all revolves around the sort of poker mechanism. It's got a great look. It's got a really neat vibe to it. My only complaint is that I think the board, this sort of trifold, dry erase board for every player with tons of information on it, could have been bigger. I think it would have been nicer to be able to read some of these buildings because there's so much on there. But the gameplay is really, really fun. Another game that is very much like it is Pioneer Rails. Pioneer Rails gets an 8 from me, and this one is sort of one of those, Armageddon Deep Impact things. It's Western themed, it's a flip and write, you are making poker hands. This one obviously a little bit different, a much lighter game ultimately, a little faster, a little lighter. In this one you are also flipping over cards, but it has a sort of network creation idea to it. I like it. I like what's going on. It's, again, got a great look and a really neat setting to it. The idea of circling or sort of putting enough lines around a location in this hex, overlay to unlock that ability or that location is really cool. If it's a gold mine, one single line next to it, that's enough. If it's something you need to break into, you have to almost surround the entire building to get in there. And that works wonderfully. So Pioneer Rails is another flip and write that I would recommend if you like Western themes. Both of these are great. I reviewed Evenfall, which I gave an 8.5 to. This one is a gorgeous, deep, robust game that missed the mark on a couple of things. I don't like some of the graphic choices they made. Score track's kind of weird. A few things that I think could have been left on the cutting room floor and could have simplified the game. but the gameplay, the combos, all the combos. I love cards like this with lots of, multi-use abilities and immediately, a few turns into the game, I'm going to be doing stuff that the other players aren't doing already. And I really enjoy that. It's a great setting, deep, thinky, clever card game. And then lastly, we reviewed 4 trick-taking games from All Play. I'll just mention my favorite from the bunch, and that is Mori, which I gave a 9 out of 10 to. It is a wonderful trick-taking game that managed to both feel clever and not obtuse, to give you a lot of rules and things to manipulate, but you quickly get up to speed. It is the kind of trick-taking game that feels like it's not out of your hands, but you can't control everything. It has dice, and those dice behave as suits, and they will allow you to bend and break some of the rules. It's got awesome artwork, a great vibe to the whole thing. It does not outstay its welcome. It's a wonderful card game, / dice game, I guess. So I really like Mori. And that's it for me. That's a lot. I'll see you on the next one.
Week in review time. I took a look at 2 more Marvel Champions heroes. Spoiler alert, I still really like Marvel Champions, my favorite game of all time. But I did take a look at Deadpool and X-23. So with Deadpool, he's definitely a zany, wacky character that has interesting stuff, but feels very, very Deadpool. I love how the theme comes through for him. He can't die. He has all sorts of the zany fourth wall breaking stuff. But overall, the fourth wall breaking stuff made it not the upper echelon of heroes that I necessarily want to play, because sometimes I don't necessarily want the silliness in my games. I played it with a new player and I was like, this is not normally how Marvel Champions goes, with all the silliness and stuff like that. And when you get the obligation on you a couple times, it makes it so you can't talk. It's kind of crazy. But X-23, I love this character. She just feels like Wolverine's daughter, She can heal up a ton. She is able to do damage to herself. The fact that she's unexhausting all the time is really exciting. I just really love what these characters bring to Marvel Champions. So a 9 for X-23, super enjoyable. Love that character. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you around on the next one.
It's Chris time. Ba-da-da-da. Hey everyone, Chris here. This week I took a look at quite a few games, the first of which was Evenfall. I gave this one a 6. I find it to be a good, fun, robust system, but a little bit overcomplicated for what satisfaction I'm getting out of it, and it lasts a little bit too long. Next up, Anunnaki, I gave an 8. A lot of good reviews this week. Anunnaki, a big, massive, what looks like a dudes on a map kind of a game. Really more of an efficiency Euro game puzzle from designers I really enjoy. I think that if you enjoy the idea of Scythe with not a ton of conflicts, but a lot of fun efficiency puzzle going on, this one has more efficiency puzzle and just feels really rewarding. Pioneer Rails, I also gave an 8. A flip and right game in the Wild West that uses poker cards. I like what it's doing where you're making poker hands and you're trying to connect to different parts of the map. It feels good, a little bit familiar, but it feels good, and I really think that poker hand thing still feels a bit fresh. Battle of the Gods, an 8.5. King of Tokyo, mixed with a little bit of dice throwing, kind of a game where you run around a map and bash each other or race to collect glory. This one speaks to me a lot. It's very fast, very punchy. The characters feel very distinct from each other. It's a bit overproduced is my biggest complaint about it. Empire's End, an 8.5. John D. Clair decided, hey, you remember old Stefan Feld, in the Year of the Dragon, where the game would just punish you with disaster after disaster? That's what this is, mixed with no thanks, and it's so fun. I find myself coming back to this one surprisingly a lot. For a game that beats you up, it also gives you plenty. Fliptown, an 8.5. Another Western-themed flip and right game that uses poker hands, but this one is it's more robust, and it's almost a little bit open world feeling. You can kind of go rob things or go down the trail, do whatever. Lots of mini games in a flip and right game. I think this one does it wonderfully. We also took a look at the 4 trick-taking games from All Play. The standout of the bunch is Mori for me. I gave that one an 8.5. Between the 4 games, it goes from a 6 for me all the way up to an 8.5. Mori is a standout. This has become one of my favorite trick-taking games I've played in a long time. Mixes dice. Every suit can trump a previous suit. It does so many things that I think are just excellent. We also did, Wendy and I, a video called Who Wore It Better, where we looked at games that use score tracks in different ways and kind of compare and contrast them. A lot happened this week, so I'll stop talking now. That's been my week.
Hey there, everybody. It's Mike DeLisio, and this was a busy week for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. First up, we have Pies, which I rated a 7 out of 10. Pies is a game that's been around for a bit. This is the third different version of it, and it is essentially a trick-taking game, but it is more a set collection game. The trick-taking is used kind of as a turn order mechanism to choose cards for your set collection. It's a good game that I obviously can recommend. It doesn't really stand out to me all that much. I feel like the Pie thing, the 3.14 is a little bit of a gimmick, but still a good game. Up next, we've got Pray Another Day, which I rated a 7.5. This is an interesting card game where there's a food chain theme, and basically there's a bit of bluffing going on. There's a little bit of guesswork. It has a very bright, garish look to it. If you don't like it, it's over in about 10 minutes, and if you do like it, you're going to want to play it over and over again. Next up is Bacon, which I also rate a 7.5. Bacon is what is known as a card shedding game, so it's basically an adjunct to trick-taking games. You're trying to get rid of all the cards in your hand. Bacon is a game where you can play in partnership, and so you get points based on when your partner goes out. It's a beautiful looking game with a great 50s diner aesthetic, one that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. Up next, we've got 1902 Melies. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's about famous film A Trip to the Moon, a silent film. I gave this an 8 out of 10. This is a game that has a theme that I really, really enjoy. I love the idea of making a silent film, and it does some nice thematic things where you're doing pre-production work, production work, and post-production work. You're using worker placement essentially to kind of take actions to help produce this film. Really interesting game and a great theme. Next is Mori. I also rated this an 8. This is a really interesting trick-taking game that uses both cards and dice, and it's a game where oftentimes you're trying to avoid winning tricks, so there are what are known as X cards and X dice that in almost every situation you play it, it means you're going to lose that trick. So some neat things. Some elements felt familiar to me, but this is very much its own animal, a really solid game. Next and finally is Lunar, which I'm rating an 8.5, a seal of excellence. This is a partnership, or it's a 2 or 4 player game, although I'm always going to want to play it 4 player. A limited communication trick-taking game. So I just think it's fascinating. This is one of those games where it's not a light, breezy trick-taking game where you're going to have a lot of table talk. This is one where it's limited communication. Really the only communication you're having with your partner are cards that you pass to them at the beginning of the round. One player is playing essentially half of a card. So you're either playing a number card or a suit card, and you put those together between your partners to create one card. Really, really interesting game, one I like quite a bit. All right, well, that's going to do it for me this week. Let's keep it moving.
Hi, I'm Wendy Yee, and this week I just have one game that I reviewed, and that is Anunnaki. Now, I gave this a 7 because it is a dudes on a map game, a little bit, but it's mostly a Euro game, and so I liked it. I found it enjoyable. The action selection of that little star grid thing that you have in the middle is really cool. The actual battling is okay. I don't mind it. It's not die rolling. It's not super random. It's not, hey, I have to super overthink you. There's a little bit of that. But I think overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. And that was a happy surprise. I do like the designer. Both of them have been doing some cool games that I've liked. So yeah, overall, I was happy with it. So there you go, 7 for Anunnaki.
Whew! I reviewed a lot of things last week, but 16 of the reviews were, I did 8 short kids games reviews. So if you want to see some cool kids games and some bad kid games. And then I did 8 other game reviews where I reviewed the worst game of the year, along with several other games. Meanwhile, I did a Q&A this past week. I did, of course, our boring unboxing. We reviewed Fliptown. Really like this flip and write game. Great theme, very enjoyable. Probably my favorite roll and write, flip and write game this year. 8.5. We took a look at Empire's End. I gave this one a 7.5. I enjoyed it a lot as a no thanks type game where you're trying not to have your empire destroyed, but it's going to get destroyed a lot anyway. I didn't think I would love that theming, but John D. Clair pulled it off. I enjoy it. We did our crowd surfing show on Wednesday, and Board Game Smorgasbord, we talked about Christmas movies on Thursday. We reviewed Battle of the Gods. This is a King of Tokyo type game where you have some gods that run around and hit each other with dice. I thought it was okay. I gave it a 6. It's just not as good as King of Tokyo slash Dice Throne for me. And I thought it took itself a little too seriously. Evenfall. This is a game in which you are playing cards and have a big kind of engine building with witches and things like that. I gave it an 8. Very strong game. A few minor things that I would have liked to see better, but overall I was very impressed by it. We did the 3rd episode of our role-playing game this week. If you haven't watched that, it's a lot of fun, so join in for that. We reviewed 4 trick-taking games from Allplay, which is Bacon and Pies and Lunar and another one. There's 4 of them, so you have to go check that out for the reviews in that one. I think I did that. That makes my 26 reviews I did this week, I guess. Anyway, moving on. We also took a look at... what's the last thing I took a look at here? That would be Anunnaki. Anunnaki, a big giant game from Cranio. Too big, honestly. But really cool theming, an amazing accent selection thing. Some production problems and things bring it down to an 8. I can't give it excellent because there's a few problems with the game overall, but it's so much fun to play. I really do enjoy it. So anyway, those are the reviews and things and videos that we put up this week. A lot of stuff. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you this week now. Get ready. Here we go. I'm Tom Vassell, and you've been watching Week in Review on the Dice Tower.